Captain.
Context. Questions and sent them to Captain Cantrell. She responded back with that information. I'm going to email that to you now. Thank you for your thorough job with sending us that information. So, yeah, but she did say she had to leave and go to a baseball game. So it's good.
That's important. I know what
It
it
is.
is.
It is.
I sponsor a baseball team, and they won third place in the World Series in North Carolina. So I know that's important. Okay, we'll go with the chair remarks, and we don't have a whole lot at this time. But I'm understanding that we may have a new process of how you go by reapplying for the community review board, and it happened to fall in my lap, and I believe Alicia Haddock, I think it's time for us to reapply, and we're gonna do our best to do what we need to do to fill out the proper paperwork, and hope we get selected again. I'm the longest serving member there is.
Yes, you are, Mr. Holloway. Thank you for your service. It will be is it 7 years?
It seems like more than that, but
So it started in 2019. He's been on the board since then and reappointed a couple of times, but that's under the COB. So now under the COB, this was his first term.
Second term.
For the CRB, your first.
Okay.
Yeah. For the COB, it was your second, which ended up being almost the 6 years. And now we're in the 7th year.
But anyway, I guess hopefully the mayor doesn't decide to make a change. If he does, that's fine with me, you know. I think I've done my best, and
You have.
the community seem to take a liking to me. They take time out to watch the recording on television. And reason why I know when I go to the Y to hang out, you know, they gonna question me, give me some advice on what they heard, you know, and then they appreciate me doing what I can for the people. My thought about the community is we all God's children. And we need to support people who just don't have the finance to defend for themselves. And this board was designed for a purpose to represent them. And we're doing the best we can. And I appreciate everyone for showing up and taking action and doing whatever you can do. Take away from your time, you could be doing something else, you know. But it takes a special person. And I've seen over the years that some people use it for improve their resume. That's not about me, you know. And it's about the people.
It's about the people.
Okay, we'll move on. Do we have any public comments?
Not tonight.
Not tonight. If we get something later on, please let me know. If we get a message, text in. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the executive director report.
Okay, the report, I'll start with here. We didn't have an executive board meeting this month because we had kind of covered a whole lot of information over the last 90 days. And so I thought that you guys needed a little break. I'm just kidding. So we didn't have that meeting. Our next meeting is on Monday, October the 27th. Dr. Risby will be there in my absence, taking care of the cases, because I'll be working towards this annual conference with NACO. And so everyone should get updates about that within either tomorrow or whoever's attending tomorrow, or what's tomorrow? Tuesday or Wednesday, okay. We're still interviewing for the compliance monitor position. We've interviewed some people, thought we had some really strong candidates there. There's still some other strong candidates. That process is pretty lengthy in the sense that we have a lot of questions to ask, so that we are making certain that not only do we get a person that's skilled, but we also want to make certain that we have a person that fits really tight within our office culture. This month for complaints, we received 8 civilian complaints since our last board meeting in August, and 1 commendation. And I will say that I was very happy to hear from the chief of police, Chief John Drake, in response to our compliance review reports. He responded back to those. I have some numbers for you. Hold on one second. All right. So the chief responded to 6 cases. It was more than 6 actually, but some of those were just closures. So there wasn't any real response to those. And so he responded back to 2023-026, 2024-002, 2024-030, 2024-038, 2024-077, and 2025-010. And we also have between 19 and 20 cases that we're still waiting for responses on. All right, I did want to talk a little bit about that really quickly. When I reviewed the cases that he had sent back on 2025-002, that case was related to a director-initiated shooting investigation. He sent that case, so apparently I sent it twice because it was really an administrative closure. And I think that I questioned, and then I made an update in the language I put in there. And so both of them got sent to him. And so that's where, when you read that, it said, you know, that there was this discrepancy or something. I don't know exactly what language he used, but they both said the same thing, just worded slightly different. The first one was worded whether or not, like, you know, when it was more of a question was posed, when can we have the opportunity to make an executive director initiated complaint related to a police shooting? Then the second one was that we needed an update to the MOU agreement, that it really spelled that out and flushed that out. And so they sent that language related to that. And one of the things that I was just telling Wesley was that as we get closer to the MOU agreement time, which the end for that is in November. I can't believe it's been a year almost. I think that this would be some of the things that we bring up. And so one of the things tonight I would like to talk about after, you know, we get closer to the end under new business is maybe we should go ahead and meet with the MOU committee for the month of October so that we can determine whether or not we need to send some updates or request that with, you know, Frank and Wesley, and make any changes to the MOU agreement as it pertains to things that we know, because we've worked that MOU agreement for a year to determine if there's been any issues that we need to resolve and update the MOU agreement. So I don't know exactly if we made the decision on who's on the MOU committee, but if at the end of the meeting, if you want to talk about that, then we can talk about that now. I think it'd be a great idea to do that before the next board meeting. Because, you know, I'm going to be gone for about a week, so we need to, if we're going to have a MOU committee meeting before the expiration of this agreement in November because of the holidays and all that, the agreement was signed November the 24th, I believe, and then that'll be Thanksgiving. So we need to probably meet the first or second week of October, whoever's on the MOU committee, and have like a committee meeting. All right, so that's that. But I wanted to dig into a couple of these cases really quickly before we move on. So 2024-038, that was a case that was related where the word exonerated, they said should have read sustained. And I'm going to just read into the record what this says. Is this 38? Yes. So I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm going to get down to where this discrepancy lies. So the chief responded that the MMPD would note a discrepancy in the NCRB recommendation that suggests the sergeant was exonerated by OPA for the violation of policy regarding self-identification. This was a case involving a woman who was pulled over by the police, and there was multiple charges. This was Dr. Risby's case. And at some point, that complainant asked the sergeant to identify himself and others, and he refused to do so. And so what they sent over, I'm gonna finish reading this first, let me go. It says, the compliance review report incorrectly listed an exonerated finding for section 4.20.050, official obligations, and in the letter N, self-identification for the sergeant. In fact, he says, in fact, OPA sustained this charge and the sergeant was disciplined for the violation. Well, when we pulled the documents that came from OPA, this one, there's two things here. The first one is, this is a document that we received from them, and here it has MMPD Manual 4.20.050, official obligations in self-identification, and then it says, recommendation exonerated. And they say, upon filing her complaint to OPA, the complainant advised she was stopped by an officer. The complainant requested his name and her complaint because she did not believe that that was his name. On the body-worn camera, the officer does not provide his name after the initial stop, and the complainant does not request his name. Then the sergeant does state the officer's name during the interaction. Later, when the complainant exits her vehicles and requests names and badge numbers, it says, however, the sergeant indicates to the other officer to leave the scene. That officer leaves the scene at the sergeant's request, and for this reason, the above allegation is exonerated. So, I know if you may not be able to follow me, but if you have these documents, they're saying that basically where it says exonerated, it said sustained, but it doesn't. This says exonerated, and that's what we included in our report. And I also followed up with it in an email to Dr. Risby, and I said, after reviewing the case once again before sending to the chief, I wanted to touch base with you about the findings. I think you did an awesome job on this case. However, I disagree with OPA's investigation findings for self-identification. The officer clearly stated why he withheld that information from the complainant, and in my humble opinion, his response was unsatisfactory. Additionally, OPA exonerated the officer even though he was clearly in violation of the policy. So I don't know what that is and why they said that, but their documentation says that he was exonerated. That's what we also said. But they say here that they sustained that, which they did not. Okay? All right, so moving on from that one. I'm just going to touch base on one last one, and it's CC 2023-026, related to an officer, and this was related to an officer not checking out evidence and property correctly. What they say on 2026, do I have that one? You got it? Let me look through it. It's 2026. Sorry for the delay, you all. Is that it? Okay. So in 026, this is a case, and I'm sure you guys remember the case where it was a parent. She had lost her son in a traffic fatality with two other children, two boys in the car with them. So it was 3 young teenagers. And so this case, the response from the chief, and by the way, they have accepted all of our recommendations, but they just have these notations and narratives that kind of are slightly incorrect. So it says the factors contributing to this decision, the recommendation proposed by the National Community Review Board is already covered in the Metro Nashville Police Department manual. And this is 5.140.060, seizure procedures, D, protecting evidence, 3, and E, other procedures 1 and 3. And so they do have that in the book. But what happened is the detective, when a family member showed up on the scene, the detective was able to retrieve that person's telephone number. I'm sorry, cell phone. And when he received that cell phone, he took it to the evidence room and he logged it in. And then he held on to it and kept it. And so I think my recommendation was that, he should have also logged it out. So he should have placed it into custody at the evidence room, and then he should have signed the documentation to take it back out, because he had the authorization from the family. But what he did was he held on to it and took it for forensics and all that, and they were asking for the phone back. And the phone was held in limbo for like 6 or 7 months. And so, although they had that procedure in place, he failed to do it. And so, that part wasn't addressed in this response from the chief. So those are the only ones that I think had, some, discrepancies in them. I don't know what the remedy is for those. I do want, if you guys are, if you are acceptable to me sending it back to them for review, then I think that that's a procedure that we could do. If you want to chime in?
I don't know that this situation is explicitly contemplated in the
so.
rules, but it sort of begs out for a remedy whenever there's a clear error in the findings compared to the notation in the chief's acceptance. So I don't think it can hurt to simply submit that for a correction. And if there's some issue with the procedure, perhaps we can specifically articulate a procedure in a future MOU to address. Could it be a clerical mistake? I don't know exactly what kind of oversight led to this mistake, but it's very clearly a mistake on the part of MNPD.
Let me tell you by experience, that requires suspension. It's kind of like going through the change of command in the change. Whenever you receive that document or the evidence, then before the end of your shift, you turn it in, you log it in. And if you need to get it back from the property room, you got to log it back out. There have been times that people fail to turn in evidence the same day before the end of the shift and got suspended. It was no oral recommend or written, it was suspension. And I know that as for a fact. So the rules are rules, and if we're gonna go by the rules, then we need to enforce the rules.
Mr. Hall.
Okay, Board Member Searson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move at this time that we authorize the executive director to return the 2 documents wherein the mistakes are manifest.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Board Member.
Can I ask you a question about this case, Director Fisher? Did I read in the case notes that there was a court order to seize the phone? Is that my understanding?
A court order
Right,
for the cell phone?
right.
I don't know, let me check, hold on one
Or am I confusing that with another case?
I don't think that there was a court order because this was a volunteer, like the family member volunteered to give the phone. Remember, this is the case where she received a text message after, unfortunately, the death of her son. And so there was no court order here.
There's no court order.
No.
So they holding the phone for what purpose other than just being property of a?
Well, I think so the investigation was about drag racing. And so this was about a drag racing incident where the MNPD, knew that some children were racing, and then they pulled back, and I think they end up losing control of their vehicle.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it was a fatal accident for three young people.
No, I knew that they were holding phones for fentanyl reasons, for those
yeah.
kind of cases. I didn't, I'm
This was for
confused.
drug, this
has
was
got
definitely,
nothing-
this was for drag racing.
Got it, sorry, thank you.
Okay, I failed to realize, board member Heather, the question she wanted to ask the captain, so let her do it.
I was gonna just go over, go ahead, because I was gonna read her stuff out too, so.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Chair. Captain Kentrell, good to see you again. We had a lot of discussion at the last meeting, and one of the things that I think was briefly mentioned was MMPD's new hires, when they come on board and they do the diversity tours, if it would be possible for them to get a slot to either do some type of training or meet the CRB. I can't remember what the exact ask was, but.
It was.
It was that, okay. After the meeting, I was able to attend part of a MMPD diversity tour with the human trafficking organization that I sit on the board for. And it was a very large group of new hires, very diverse, and it was really, I think, impactful for them to sit with survivors of human trafficking and to have that face-to-face dialogue with the community. And so it just made me think of our request at the last meeting and was wondering if that was addressed or if it was possible to do that.
So can you hear? I did reach out to Commander Tiffany Gibson over at the Training Academy, and the way that she explained it to me, she's happy to have that conversation. However, the upcoming year for the Training Academy schedule has already been set and approved. So because they run actually on a calendar year as opposed to a fiscal year, so what they've got set for January through December of 2026 is already in place. But she would be happy to have that conversation and try to plan for time for that to occur, if that's something that the board would like to do. I'm happy to facilitate that conversation. She just didn't want to set an unrealistic expectation that they would be able to do it for for calendar year 26, but she's happy to try to figure out a way to make that happen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, no, I think that's, I'm gonna go, I am going to talk a little bit about Captain Cantrell's, because it's in my executive director's report.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so when we met last month, there was some discussion around the topic about recruitment. And so we gave her some information that we wanted to discuss at this meeting. And I sent along I followed up with that, and then I wanted to ask her a few more questions because I was like, well, that's just gonna give us a small picture of what it is that's really happening. So I asked her, related to recruitment and training, to provide the following information: the breakdown of demographics for the last 6 training classes by race, gender, ethnicity, and age. The graduation related to the demographics for the last 6 training classes. Any recruitment initiatives that would assist with reaching the goals of increasing the department's sworn staff, such as 30 by 30 diversity, lateral trainings, and so on. And then also areas of recruit training where recruits were failing to succeed. So, so that we get a clear picture of what was really what's going on. And so her response back was very thorough, and this is some of the numbers that she gave. I'm gonna email this to you now so that you can look at it, but I will just touch base quickly. She says that our most recent graduation was held on July 9th. They're on track to conduct 6 training sessions this calendar year and intend to have 6 sessions next calendar year as well. Currently, they have 3 sessions in the academy, totaling 63 trainees, and the breakdown looks like this. The median age is 30, and this is in the session 113, a lateral class. The median age is 30. There's 11 different categories for race, or 11 people, I'm sorry. So you have 3 blacks, 8 whites, 0 Hispanics, 0 others, and you have 8 males and 3 females, and that's in the lateral class. In the regular basics class, the median age is 25, and there's a total of 32 people, 4 blacks, 24 whites, 2 Hispanics, 2 others. You have 26 males and 6 females. And I'm gonna send this to you, I'm not gonna cover all of them, but I wanted you to see that. And then The majority of the candidates do not graduate they voluntarily resign during training. Some of those that do not resign, the reason that they do not graduate varies from failing law, gun range, general exams, emergency vehicle operations. They may be injured, they may get terminated. Based on the data, she went back to 2013, when this information started being tracked. The law portion of the training is the greatest point of failure for trainings, but it is still significantly lower than resignations, just as a point. She said they offer a rigorous course load focused on preparing the trainees for working in Nashville's diverse community. Some of the courses are Spanish for law enforcement, community-oriented policing, diversity and inclusion, essential information serving people with varying degrees of hearing loss, fair and impartial policing, professional and ethical conduct, duty to intervene, autism and developmental disabilities, and of course, dementia. They also participate in a diversity bus tour. They take a one-day bus tour to different areas of Nashville to learn about locations and cultures. And they are budgeted now for 1,720 FTEs. We currently have 200 sworn females and 331 sworn officers who identify as not white. The MPD recruitment unit participated in about 171 recruitment events in the fiscal year for 24 and 25. And she says that they're dedicated to hiring the best candidates for Nashville while working towards building diversity in their department. And I'll leave it at that. I think that you guys have caught, and I will send this to you for you to review. And I think that you'll have as much information as you want. And I think it is a discussion that we should have. So.
That's a good report. I thank you for that report. But what if I was 50 years old and applying for the police department? Or what happened before I retired? We had a guy who was 53 years old, but he was able to do the physical work better than some of those 25 and 30 years old. And you still have a problem with people passing the law test in the gun range. But one of the best law instructors we had was Sergeant Phil Davidson.
Is there an age limit for the department? Oh, I know with
No,
the feds it is.
It used to be that somebody filed a lawsuit and they allowed him to be in the class, and that guy was able to do better than a lot of kids, a lot younger than he was. But anyway, let me get back to Phil Davidson. Phil was able to break it down where you could understand, and interpret it. And we had a lot of kids were able to make it through the law because of him, And sometimes you have to get an instructor who able to relate and how to dilute some of those laws so a person can understand and keep it on their mind, And that's maybe something maybe. But anyway, we appreciate the report. We're not gonna hold you with that. But it's good to know they're out there trying to beef up the police department. Next thing on the agenda is a MOU agreement update. You ready for that?
I don't think there's anything else. I think I covered that.
You covered that, okay.
I did want to cover one other thing in here, in my executive director's report, and that is, I already covered, did I cover budget? No, we didn't talk about budget. So budget season is coming. We know it's always coming. Fiscal year 27, usually, I think what I've learned in the past, where, with Mr. Goddard, when he was on here, is that, what we discussed was like meeting prior to the start of it. So if you notice, you should have our budget information that was sent in hand, which what this is a capture of our budget actuals. And then you'll see this report that looks like this is a report that is generated through finance. It's called a bar report. It's always a few months behind. Okay, so that's why we have decided to keep up with our own actuals in that way. So you can look through this and look at where we are, and then I would like to schedule a committee meeting with the budget for December, because it's usually that we have to start uploading everything in February. And then if we could, project what our need will be in the month, for this fiscal year 27, we can get started on that now. I will send out information to the committee members to see, when's a good time to meet in the month of December, early December would be good, just to kind of, and we'll bring all of our budget information. I'll ask Ms. Barnett, who keeps up with our financials, to have a spreadsheet so that you guys can see it. I think I've showed it to you before as well when we met at the office for that training at time. So, I'm looking forward to that too. So I think that's it for me as it pertains to, outreach and engagement, I'm sorry. So outreach and engagement, we had Seniors on the Move, a walk, run, and roll 2K event. That was last Saturday. What we're participating in two things. You know, we have a campaign right now. That campaign is Your Voice, Our Mission. So we have billboards all across the city. I do think I think that the visibility has increased to calls for service. And so we want to continue with that. We want to do some special things with that, and maybe you guys can help us with some creativity, but we're hoping that we can do something with the community, like maybe if they see a sign or billboard, to call it, take a snapshot, send it to us, and we'll send them a gift bag or grab bag of stuff. I don't know what we'll do, but we're working on that campaign. We're also collaborated with the Nashville Defender's Office. They wanted to do a Know Your Rights series. So that's already been shot, and those videos will go up soon on our social medias. And then, of course, I don't know if you know this, but Saturday, October the 4th is Celebrate Nashville. That's in Centennial Park. We would love for you to partner with us and be out there. And then there's, what I gave you today is a public safety community snapshot. So whatever zip code we're in for a community event, we try to make certain that the people of that community have this snapshot that they can have and then ask questions about, whether to us, to their council members, or to their local precincts. And I want you to save the date for the Fall Festival at the Harding Park on November the 8th. And the Tennessee Justice Center resource. Okay, anyway, never mind. Don't worry about those. Okay, so that's it.
Question.
Okay.
The billboards, what will one billboard cost us?
Well, billboards are really based on the size and what they provide. So if it's digital, it's the most expensive. And then it depends on, they all have different prices. It was a jigsaw game.
Give me an example.
Katura, do you want to answer that question, please? They're expensive.
If you got the total amount, that would be good. And the reason why I ask is not being picky, because the kind of work that we do, sometimes if you talk to them right, you might get some at no cost.
Well, no, we still have to go through the procurement process and process that finance has together, and we're working with vendors. So who we chose to go with this time was Lamar, which is a company that, of course, has billboards around Nashville, but have a contract with Metro. So we looked at billboards around the city at the end of the last fiscal year. So the process I had already started before this fiscal year. However, we didn't go through with it, with purchasing the billboard time and spaces until this beginning of this fiscal year in July.
And we spent, what, $24,000?
Yes, $24,000 was for the total, and I believe that's for like four or five locations.
Mm-hmm. 5 locations.
Yeah, and so for what we signed with them was just or agreed to have with Lamar was to have the billboards put up for, I believe the duration was for 90 days. 3 months?
About 90 days.
Yeah, and so that's for the billboard, that one graphic that we had. It's in different colors, but in different locations within Nashville.
And some billboards are illuminated, some aren't. Yes. Some are larger than others. I mean, if you drove down James Robertson Parkway and you saw our billboard over by the Stadium Inn, you would think that's a huge billboard, because it is. But, the way that it sits kind of low. So of course, if it's higher up, it looks smaller. But because it sits kind of low, it is a magnificent piece of art. And then also, there's one at Charlotte, 28th in Charlotte, going towards White Bridge Road. And we have one in East Nashville. We have one in South Nashville, on Franklin Road and Nolansville or something like that. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's on that side of town. We tried to be, very intentional about where we were putting them across the city. And, people have noticed them. And so I think that they have been, this is not the last time when we were the COB, we did something similar, but it was wrapping a bus. So we had a city bus that was wrapped with our logo, and then we had some when you buy that package, which was way more expensive, you also get bus stop, card ins and things of that nature. So sometimes the advertisement was inside the bus, I don't know what you call them, I call them bus stops, but the bench, so. Yeah, I think that this is a way, and especially since the NCRB had to kind of reinvent themselves. And a lot of people continue to think that we're still, that we're abolished, that we're, that they don't see the COB and the CRB as being, the same agency or similar agency. So it's been helpful.
Sound like you're doing a good job. I always look at something at the lowest bidder, You can find somebody to do.
Well, you do have to go through a bidding system.
Yes, and we did do that. We had 3 quotes but we chose to go through Lamar. And so, yeah, through the bidding system is with the vendor who would provide the lower cost. And like Director Fitcher said, depending on if it's digital billboard, if it's like a regular billboard, the location, all those prices vary, depending on where it's located.
Well, you really done that at a good time, because I believe next year you're gonna have a lot of election going on, and you're gonna have some competition out there,
You might.
And so they're gonna be in the press. I got you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm running this, okay? You're gonna have some competition out there, and gonna be a lot of people,
Yes.
trying to get in office, and they're gonna be getting these, getting their signs put up.
Right.
Board Member Cersei.
Has there been any appreciable increase in the number of complaints?
Yes, and we have that information. I'll make certain on the next, at the next board meeting, I'll give you the impressions and what's happening with that, with the billboard.
Since the billboards are going
Oh,
up?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it has been really helpful.
Excellent.
Thank you. And I'm just amazed with the job y'all doing.
Thank you.
And when I retire from this board, I'm gonna put in my application, okay? That's just a joke.
Come
man.
on
I don't wanna
down.
go no further than here. I just want you to get a little smile on your face, Sometimes people blow stuff out of proportion sometimes, but I'm just saying that my friend, just a little joke, just a little humor. Okay, the next item we have on the board is, what is that? Is that the MC?
That's the consent closure.
Consent closure, that's the next item?
So we had one for closure, CC 2024-014.
Okay,
That case is a closure because of a Rule 16 issue. And usually with these, I'm not gonna read them, you just got, I know that you got them late. And let me just say this on the front end. I sent all of the information to you on Friday, and obviously some people got it and some didn't. And so that's a little concerning. And so we have had a tremendous amount of trouble over the last month with our technology. I don't know exactly what's going on. We've had people come, we've had vendors, we've, had a bunch of things happening. So I apologize in advance if you did not receive these. I don't know how some people received them and some didn't, because I did send them out. It was late because I ended up reworking a case. So I was at the office late working on it. And so I know that I sent them all. And I thank Board Member Michelle for telling me that she didn't get it, because I would have never known that. And so if you don't receive the information by Friday, you need to text me or email me or something. The goal is to get this stuff to you by Wednesday before the board meeting. So that is the goal. That's what we are working towards, to make certain that, now there may be some, some hiccups with certain things, especially if you get into a case and then you go back and read it and you're like, okay, well, I need to add some other stuff to it. But that's the goal, to get it to you the Wednesday prior to the board meeting. This time you didn't get some of you may not have gotten the cases. If you want me to go over this closure with you, if you didn't have time, but it's a closure, it's a Rule 16. A mother, she's a complainant, her son, she was filing her complaint on behalf of the son. He said that they failed to return her son's phone and failed to read her son his rights when he was arrested. And they submitted a false police report, took her son's shoes, and excessively searched him and made discourteous remarks toward him. The compliance monitor didn't see any of that in the video, but also he had an arrest warrant, and so the case is in the middle of a criminal court case. So they would not release any information to us, and so that's why the case is being closed. Not because of the content, but because we don't have all the records that we need in order to move forward on here. So we were denied those records.
All right, Brother Boardman Brown.
Once we've closed it because of Rule 16, do we have any follow-up when the criminal case is finished, that we relook at it, or do we just leave it for for the complainant to bring it up?
Yeah, I mean, we used to do that. We don't do it as much anymore. We send that letter out to the complainant, and that letter says that, once your case is completed, you can contact us again. I think we did it in the past when we were the Community Oversight Board. We did follow up because we could still complete an investigation. But because this is a review and we haven't done that, I'm just gonna be transparent about that. I mean, we can though. We can add that, we can put this on a ticker and check in. It's not difficult to look at the cases. We have access to the clerk's office to look those up. Usually we look them up throughout the process though. I mean, just so that you know that. We are looking through it to see if it's, got a new court date or has a completed court date and all of that before we go through the closure. This case has been prolonged in the court system. I don't know why.
It just seems to me, as long as we notify the complainant that if they wish to pursue it,
Yeah.
but put it on them, because otherwise we're keeping something open that probably never comes. I hate to build up more stuff, and so, but it seems as long as we notify the complainant that upon the completion of the criminal case, if they can request the board to relook
Right.
at it.
Yeah, and in this file, so we sent our letter, and we also have the letter here from OPA, where they exonerated the officer, excuse me, for the grounds of arrest. So we haven't heard back from the complainant, but the complainant received a letter from OPA and a letter from us. And our letter basically says to please keep us informed of any updates regarding the pending case, and feel free to contact us. If you want. It says, I'll read it to you. Matters involved in your complaint may be related to or impact your son's pending litigation. Therefore, we must postpone our review until his case is resolved. Once his pending litigation matter has concluded, you may contact us to request reopening your complaint.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item we have on here is, cases reviews. You can present as you
Okay.
get to them.
Okay. All right, the first one is my case. All right, this is NCRB case 2024-043. This case is the allegations of misconduct against Officer Po Ching is number 1, adherence to policy and rules of the Metropolitan government. Number 2, persons riding in police vehicles. Number 3, acting impartially. Number 4, use of department property. Number 5, general provisions. Number 6, information technology security policies for MMPD procedures. The summary of the complaint is Elisha Horton, hereinafter referred to as a complainant or detective, made a complaint to the NCRB on April the 18th, 2024, alleging that Officer Po Ching, hereinafter referred to as officer, called him on his personal cell phone. The complainant, a detective with the Clarksville Police Department, reports that he never met the MMPD officer and did not give the officer permission to contact him through his personal cellular device. The complainant stated on April 16th of 2024, the officer contacted him on his personal cellular device regarding a matter involving a person whom he was trying to interview regarding an allegation of rape. The complainant stated that officer told him he obtained his personal cell number by utilizing the TLO database. The complainant alleges the officer stated his friend, the person who the complainant wanted to interview for a criminal investigation, was seated beside him and was worried that the complainant was scamming him by portraying to be an officer. The complainant reported the officer used his police credentials, authority, equipment, and MMPD resources to obtain his personal cell number on behalf of his friend. Additionally, he alleged that the officer contacted his work cell number 2 times and left a message stating that the complainant's number had shown up on his phone, and he was curious as to what the call was about. The complainant stated that he never contacted the officer, and he was concerned that the officer's unlawful and unauthorized access to the TLO database infringes upon his personal rights of privacy, as well as could have potentially exposed his information to a person of interest in a criminal investigation. So I read all that summary because this case was a little more complicated. So let me through something. The evidence that I reviewed was the investigation file, the ECC, I think it was a CAD report. The body worn camera footage, mostly it was only 6 minutes and 45 seconds long, but there was a lot of information in there. The recorded interviews and the officer's disciplinary file. And so when I went over this case, because it also involved a CIT worker, which is a Partners in Care person. And I also wanted to make certain, because they may not have been aware, because she's a civilian, that she was involved in this kind of complaint as a witness. And so if you're reading through this, you know, the names have been altered slightly. So the OPA investigator, Sergeant Michael Sulphur, was assigned to this case. And so they went through the process. They contacted the Clarksville police detective, who also contacted us and talked to one of our previous employees, Attorney Daniel Yoon. And so this was a case that was passed on. And so the police detective basically had tried to contact a person of interest in this allegation. And so he contacted that person, spoke to that person, and set up a time and said, hey, come meet me at the office. And so the suspect, for lack of a better term, he wanted to know what the investigation was about. And so the detective said, well, I can't tell you that over the phone because I have to identify you. I don't know who you are. And so you need to come to the office and then we can go over any questions or whatever. And so that person did not do that. Instead, that person contacted either well, once you get into it, they contacted the CIT worker who was that person's friend. And then they ended up talking to Officer Ching, not in the car with him, but on a speaker device, on a cell phone. And so I transcribed a lot of this case so that you could get some clarity about who was saying what, because I think that the information was very impactful to the decisions of this case. And so the body-worn camera was on, and then it stopped abruptly. And so I don't know what the end of the conversation was. Also, when it began, I don't really know what was being said either, because it came on, they were already deep in conversation. And so one of the things here I'm gonna talk about, so during the course of this investigation, the officer was found to have a late body-worn camera activation. And so that was and he says that he was acting in an official capacity. I'm not really sure, but I will read the conclusion and the actions, because this case is very lengthy. It'll take a lot of time. You all have it. If you have questions, we can answer them. But so OPA concluded that based on the facts obtained during the investigation, they determined that TLO is a viable tool that officers may utilize during their investigations. This tool is helpful when officers need additional information relating to an incident. The officer was investigating a possible phone scam, and that is what the suspect told him, that he felt he was being scammed and that he didn't believe that the detective was a detective. Okay, and so it says this is what OPA responded: the scams have potential to be criminal in nature. According to the officer's statement, he would have forwarded information to the Clarksville PD if he found the phone call to be a scam, where an officer was being impersonated. And they said that the officer was acting within MMPD policy when utilizing TLO to investigate a potential criminal investigation or impersonator. And they basically said that they felt like regarding the allegation of the officer sharing TLO information to an authorized person, it was determined that that person was not physically in the vehicle. And so they felt like what they said here was the officer is not friends with the officer, with the suspect, and the interaction was in a police capacity. Well, and so basically for the two charges that they picked up, which were security of department operations, they said it was unfounded. They said the officer was approved to access TLO and use it while investigating a possible crime, and that he did not give the suspect any personal information about Detective Horton. And for these reasons, it was unfounded. And then the second allegation was acting impartially, and their recommendation was also unfounded. They said that he was not, the suspect was not with the officer, and that they were not friends, and they had not communicated before this incident. And so they also found that allegation unfounded. So then I did my review, and the review is that the officer did violate policies, and here's why. So my recommendations are this. Also that their OPA's investigation was not thorough, it was not complete, and the findings were not satisfactory. I recommended that the Office of Professional Accountability to add the violation of honesty and truthfulness, and suggest that the Chief of Police review and provide a recommendation that coincides with the discipline category for honesty and truthfulness. And so here are my... All right, so this is what honest and truthfulness says. It says, employees shall be honest and truthful. Truthfulness shall apply when an employee knowingly or intentionally makes a materially false statement. A statement is material when, irrespective of its admissibility under the rules of evidence, it could have affected the course or outcome of an investigation. OPA concluded that the allegations against the officer were unfounded. The MMPD department manual listed definition for unfounded as the allegation was proven false. However, the OPA investigator failed to take into consideration and should have considered the following items. Number one, the complainant, a Clarksville Police Department detective, was told by the officer that his friend, DT, was sitting next to him and was concerned about being scammed. Number two, the officer called the detective on his police department issue cell phone, and when the detective did not answer, he left a voice message that stated, "Yeah, this number showed up on my phone, and I'm just kind of curious as to what this is about. If you can call me back at this number, please, thank you." The detective never contacted the officer because he had no knowledge of who this officer was. He did not have his cell phone number, and he did not know of any connection that he may have had with that suspect. So he couldn't have called him, although the officer said, "You just called my phone number." All right, and then number three, the officer had the opportunity to wait to hear back from the detective before utilizing TLO to locate another number for him. The officer, he called at 3:06 p.m., and he left a voice message at 3:07 p.m. And then he called again at 3:08 p.m., and he did not give the detective time to return his call before he utilized TLO and then called the detective on his personal cell phone at 3:18 p.m. And also, the information provided to the officer was not accurate according to the incident report that stated the suspect was giving a mechanical name of Elijah Horton, the name of the detective. I don't know what mechanical name means, but that's what he wrote in the incident report. And that the suspect was told to meet the detective in an unnamed location. The detective said, "Meet me at the Clarksville Police Department." So I don't know why he said that. But anyway, the detective stated that he requested to meet the suspect at the police department office and spoke to him and introduced himself properly. The OPA investigation lacked the following items. The interview with the witness, which was, I used the initials JJ, which was the CIT worker. This person was a friend of the suspect and present during the contact with the complainant and privy to the conversation between the suspect and the officer. She could have provided more information and context. What it lacked secondly was an interview with the suspect, if that was an opportunity. They did not try to do that. And then overall, more investigation should have been conducted regarding the allegation of Detective Horton. OPA's investigation relied heavily on the testimony of the officer, Officer Ching. So the recommendation is that it be sent back to OPA. The case is closed now, so this is where we find ourselves in these situations where the case is over with. It's an older case. You guys can accept it and send it to the chief of police, and then we can just talk about the honesty and truthfulness, because that is an issue in this case, that they basically made the whole case as this was just a judgment call, and that, it's unfounded. So my recommendation stands in that this case, that they should add honesty and truthfulness, and that be sent to the chief of police. And that concludes concludes this case.
You heard the conclusion of that report. Do we have a motion? Board Member Cersei?
Move the adoption of the PD's report, and that she be authorized to return it to the chief with her recommendation.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. Your next report?
Next report is.
I'll be presenting case number CC 2024-056 and the allegations of misconduct by NCRB against Officer Matthew Jorgensen are number one, conduct unbecoming of an employee of the department; number two, courtesy; Number 3, profanity, and number 4, self-control. And the summary of complaint allegations are such. On July 1st of 2024, Mr. Quilio S. White, hereinafter referred to as the complainant, contacted the Nashville Community Review Board via web submission and alleged that on June 30th of 24, he encountered MMPD Officer Matthew Jorgensen, hereinafter referred to as Officer, whose behavior was aggressive and combative. Complainant was scheduled to pick up his 16-year-old son from a concert at the Bridgestone Arena. In his attempt to get to the concert venue, complainant encountered multiple road closures managed by MNPD. Complainant spoke with his son, and the two agreed to meet at the 7-Eleven gas station located at 227 Shelby Avenue. After this, his son's cell phone died, and there was no way for the complainant to stay in contact with him. Once the complainant faced another road closure, he decided to seek assistance from an officer on duty. Complainant approached the officer and explained the situation to him. During their conversation, officer responded, "I don't give a blank," and I'll let you fill in the blank, "about you or your son. Just get out of the road. I can't tell you how to get there. Figure it out. My only concern is this post." Complainant further alleged that officer was equipped with his body-worn camera. However, he did not have it activated during the interaction. Despite the negative interaction, the complainant later encountered several officers who were friendly and did assist him. Complainant believed officers' behavior was aggressive, combative, and lacked genuine concern for the very people he swore to take an oath to protect. And Detective Manquero was the assigned investigator with OPA. And in that investigation, basically, he interviewed the officer involved. And during that interview, the officer explained, of course, that he was working the post after an event at a concert at the Nissan Stadium. During that time, he also stated that he encountered many people as he was directing traffic who became angry because the road was closed and they could not get through. When asked did he remember the complainant, a person who had complained about not getting to his son, the officer stated that he did remember this individual, and that basically he was directing the complainant, hey, you can't get through, you're gonna have to keep going. So there was a back and forth conversation between the complainant and the officer. Eventually, the complainant went on down the road and he ended up walking to get his son, and later returned on foot, passing the officer, asking the officer for his information. When asked in the interview about whether he was rude or had used profanity, the officer stated he absolutely had not. He stated that he had been very stern in his direction, but at no point did he use profanity. The detective also asked the officer, were there any other officers present during this encounter with the complainant? And the officer stated that yes, he even named the officer that stood right beside him. He said Officer Bailey McCluskey was standing right beside me, and he said that Officer Adam Coffin was working across the street. And so that was basically the end of that interview. OPA's conclusion resulted in personal behavior, conduct unbecoming of an employee of the department, not sustained, and also MMP manual personal behavior, adherence to policy and rules of the Metropolitan government, to wit, MMPD manual body-worn camera and in-car camera system documenting the existence of video or reason for lack of video. And that was unfounded. And so the NCRB's conclusion, or my assessment of it, the assistant director reviewed the evidence in the case and concludes that the Office of Professional Accountability Investigation is deficient, and NCRB recommends that the investigation be returned to the OPA for further review. To ensure an objective determination, all witness testimony and evidence should be compiled to determine whether there is credible evidence supporting or disputing the complainant's allegation or of profanity or any other misconduct. OPA should interview all available witnesses. Detective Manquero should have interviewed both officers mentioned, Officer Adam Coffin and Officer Bailey McCluskey, to determine whether they observed or whether they, saw anything else inappropriate and heard any profanity. That was not done. These steps not only ensure a fair process, but also demonstrate a commitment to transparency, accountability, and best practices in addressing citizen complaints involving law enforcement. And these recommendations, I did confer with our executive director, and it is recommended that we send this recommendation to the board and send it to the chief of police and mayor. And also the allegations that were unfounded, that were initially identified by NCRB, were personal behavior courtesy, profanity, and self-control. And that concludes my report.
Okay,
Any questions?
Board Member Cersei?
Doctor. The OPA found that the failure to use the body-worn camera was unsubstantiated, is that correct?
Yes, it was unfounded.
Now, it appears to me that that's the most important failure of this investigation, because the blue code may not give us the information from the two other police persons in an accurate fashion. It would be very easy for them to say, well, I just didn't see anything.
Correct.
And not throw their colleague under the bus. But not turning on that video camera is the damning thing. And that's, I think, what should be emphasized as his principal failure. You didn't turn on your camera, you should be disciplined for that.
And OPA states that during a traffic stop, during just general, them directing traffic, that they did not have to have body-worn camera activated.
Is that accurate policy?
I'll read the policy. As employees will document the existence of video, lack of video, or delay the start of video in all CAD update and any related incident report, arrest report, field interview, misdemeanor or traffic citation, or traffic stop data form. Documentation should include an explanation for the failure to record or delay recording. It was quoted somewhere in the report regarding what you're asking, what your question is. And I have to look at that more, but yes, that's what was stated, that during just general traffic, directing traffic, that they did not have to have the body-worn camera footage activated.
So you left in with,
Okay, I want to say one thing about, so number 11 says NCRB recommended actions for NCRB complaint allegations. And we have here unfounded, and because these are allegations that need more investigation, I'm gonna ask that we stay those. They're not, we can't say that they're unfounded because we don't know whether or not, because the body-worn camera footage. So where we have on this report unfounded, we're just going to leave those as blank for now. We will make the correction on it, because if they go back and investigate it, we can't say that these are unfounded. And I just think that that's something that we've done for cases that we end up, like, we are trying to get rid of the allegations that, because sometimes, let me just say it like this. Sometimes when a complainant contacts us and we make like when they call us and they tell us their side of what's going on, we add those allegations into our initial review. At some point, some of those allegations are not picked up by OPA. So we have these allegations and we have to remedy them. Sometimes they don't coincide with the evidence that we have, and so they are unfounded. On this particular case, they're not unfounded because we don't know for certain, and there is an allegation here, if you read the report, where there was some strong profanity, some strong language. And so what we're going to do is set aside these, our determination on these cases for now. So you may see them on your document as unfounded, but we'll make the correction on our end, and we're just going to leave these open until we can, dispose of them after we get a response from the chief. Does that make sense?
I'm not certain.
Okay, all right.
But, you know, I'll defer to your judgment,
Okay, thank you.
the two of your judgments on that. Yeah.
Board member,
Question, Doc, so in your review of OPA reports, is it customary for an investigator to explain why they didn't interview an eyewitness and an allegation?
When I listened to the interview of the officer and the detective, he did not explain why he did not pursue interviewing the witnesses. His specific statement is when he asked, were there any witnesses, were there any other officers present? And again, he stated, well, Officer McCluskey was standing right next to me, and the other gentleman was across the street. At that time, Detective Manquero inserted, and it was probably loud and you probably couldn't hear, and I kind of know those types of things kind of relating to, he inserted that there, and then the officer said, yes, it was kind of loud, and then it just kind of dropped. So in my personal opinion, when the detective inserted that, yeah, and it was probably loud, you know, he was kind of giving it an out, in my personal opinion.
okay, Board Member Brown.
I guess I'm a little confused. Do we know for sure whether there was body-worn camera footage?
There was no body-worn camera footage. The officer did not have it activated at that time. The only evidence that I did review was the interview between the officer and the detective, and then, of course, the documents.
I wonder if it would be appropriate to request that maybe there be a review of the policy on body-worn cameras if they're reading the current policy is not to require it. I mean, if we had body-worn camera, we'd know one way or the other. And so this seems to me like a situation where the body-worn camera should have been activated, and if OPA is concluding that it wasn't required, I think it would be appropriate to include a recommendation that policy be reviewed to include a requirement to include to activate the body-worn camera.
I mean, we do have there is a body-worn camera policy as it relates to investigations. You know, so, I mean, I can look and see, and we can provide that, whether or not they updated the policy to include any encounter. I think, you know, that's probably where this lies there, because it's usually really specific towards investigation, so.
I thought it would be that we recommend they be activated in any encounters, but that would be my thought on it.
Let me say this, let me say this about activating your camera. It basically, when you feel like it's gonna be a controversy behind it, but if you're talking about activating every response, every time you step out on the street, every call, it'd be a lot you can't get done. And a lot of stuff you're not gonna think can be real simple that, they're gonna ask, did you activate your camera? You know, it was an officer, did a report one time, and he wore glasses, so his glasses come down, and he got a complaint on him, said the officer was looking at him kind of rude. Man had no idea what he was talking about. But then, if they had told him to activate the camera, you know, who would have thought to activate a camera on something like that? You see, that's just one little similarity of some of the things that you may have to go through on some simple items on the street. And if it depends on your workload, and things coming at you so fast, you be activating camera whole shift, you know, and you never would think what one should you need, or what you might need, you know. So that's something we might keep in mind.
If I can just read the response that I just found in the report here. It says MNPD manual body worn camera and in-car camera system, 8.30.80, employees will record police activity, provide circumstances where an officer working a fixed post is required to activate their body-worn camera. Officer Jorgensen body-worn camera was on but not activated while working a traffic fixed post. The non-activation of body-worn camera was determined to be allowable per policy.
Board member, Cersei.
Allowable.
I'm not gonna, what I'm about to say is not a recommendation for this situation. But there may come a time in the future where we should get a subpoena from Metro Council to actually look at other cameras in the area that are not operated by MNPD. Some of these stores and clubs and other buildings, you know, are constantly viewing the areas, and there may become a more serious circumstance in the future where that's something that we would want to entertain doing, when body-worn camera data is either not sufficient or not available.
Could we get a motion on the recommendation on the report?
Move the adoption of the report.
Do I have a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed?
No,
What were you saying?
no,
Yeah.
Okay.
opposed.
Okay, the motion passes. Let's go with the next report.
Sorry about that. I forgot I was doing this case. This is NCRB CC 2024-069. The allegations of misconduct against Officer Carmelo Ferreira is number 1, deficient or inefficient performance of duties. Number 2, adherence to policies and rules. This case, the summary of the complaint allegations is that on August the 25th, 2024, at approximately 1:50 p.m., Ms. Brittany Smith, hereinafter referred to as the complainant, arrived at the Quicksack on Clarksville Pike. She was accompanied by her mother, the complainant's brother, and his girlfriend, were restrained in handcuffs after being stopped for speeding. When the complainant arrived, her brother was on the ground speaking with the officer, And the complainant's brother was handcuffed. Both of his legs were restrained with a black belt. He requested that his child be left with his mother and sister. Officer 1 appeared unconcerned about the well-being of the 13-month-old infant. The child had been left in the car for approximately 15 to 25 minutes. The vehicle lacked air conditioning, the windows were up, and the temperature outside was 95 degrees, is the allegation. The complainant's brother and his girlfriend were arrested. Once the complainant retrieved the child from the vehicle, she had puffy eyes from crying, was overheated, and drenched in sweat. The complainant alleges that Officer 1 exhibited neglect towards the child during the detention of her brother and his girlfriend. For clarity, there were 2 additional officers who were not listed in the original complaint. However, they are participants in the incident and have been listed as Officer 2, which is Nicholas Terwilliger, and Officer 3, Allison Zorns. The evidence, so this case was reviewed by our lead compliance monitor. She received the investigative file. It contained the following information. It included the OPA investigation report, the CAD history report, the extension letters, ECC CAD report, telephone audio and radio, Officer 1's body-worn camera and in-car camera, Officer 2's body-worn camera and in-car camera, the disciplinary file for Officer 1, and she reviewed all that. I also reviewed the body-worn camera footage on a couple of there was, I want to say 5 or 6 body-worn camera footages, and it was a lot of body-worn camera footage. And so this case involved a child, it involved a couple, and this couple was stopped and for speeding. The girlfriend was the driver, the complainant's brother was the passenger, their 13-month-old child was in the back seat of the car. The officer stopped the vehicle and said that he smelled marijuana, and the girlfriend advised that there was some marijuana in the vehicle. The Officer 1 spoke to the complainant's brother, who advised that there was a marijuana blunt on the passenger side of the vehicle. Officer 2 arrived to stand by with the complainant's brother and his girlfriend while Officer 1 searched the vehicle. When the girlfriend exited the vehicle, the driver's side window was down while the other windows were up and the air conditioning was running. The air conditioner appeared to be running at a high setting due to an air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror, which was extensively blowing back and forth from the AC vents. The outside temperature was approximately 95 degrees outside, based on the statements made by the complainant and a supervisor who later arrived. The vehicle appeared to have tinted windows, however, the exact percentage was unknown. A search of the vehicle yielded a marijuana blunt and a digital scale. After a search of the vehicle, they notified the brother of the complainant, which they called the suspect. Prior to the search of him, he advised that he also had marijuana on his person. After locating approximately 43 grams of marijuana in 2 plastic bags, the Officer 1 advised the complainant's brother that he was being detained. He then attempted to flee slightly, and when they attempted to apprehend, and then that was when they tried to apprehend him, he kind of took, did a little move like he was gonna run. The girlfriend interjected herself in the apprehension by grabbing Officer 1 while the complainant's brother was being arrested, and she was also taken into custody by Officer 2. Both of them were arrested and placed in separate patrol vehicles, now, I will say that they were at some point laying on the ground, and when she was laying on the ground, her buttocks were exposed, and, they quickly got her back up off the ground, but it was a lot that should have not, there was a better way to do that. Officer 1 retrieved a number for somebody to come and get the child. And so what you see is a female officer taking the child out of the vehicle, and I will read the child. It says Officer 1, they restrained the complainant's brother started banging his head in the back seat of the car, and began to kick the window. He was removed from the vehicle, and then of course he was had to have hobble restraints. The child was not heard crying on body-worn camera footage. Officer 3 arrived on the scene after the complainant's brother and his girlfriend were arrested and placed in separate patrol cars. The child was wearing, when they pulled the child from the vehicle, the child appeared to be asleep and then started crying when they removed the child from the safety restraint. The child was wearing shorts and a sleeveless shirt. There was no visible sweating or perspiration observed by the body-worn camera. The child started crying when being removed from the vehicle. However, there was no longer crying and was no longer upset when Officer 3 transferred the custody to the complainant. So that, some of the allegations were unfounded from the complainant. The medics were on the scene during the incident. The complainant verified the child did not receive medical attention from the medics or seek medical care after leaving the scene. Officer 1 began the search of the vehicle at 13:44 hours. Officer 3 removed the child from the vehicle at 14:03 and transferred the custody to the complainant. The child was in the vehicle for approximately 19 minutes. And the recommendation from lead compliance monitors, in view of the foregoing set of facts and circumstances, the following recommendations are made regarding potential policy violations by Officer 1. And that is, this is from OPA. OPA, deficient or inefficient performance of duties, exonerated. Negligence of persons also exonerated. The NCRB review of OPA's investigation video revealed that Officer 1 conducted a traffic stop for speeding. Our review kind of coincides with OPA's. I will say Officer 3 arrived at the scene, removed the infant from the car seat. The child was not observed crying, was not observed drenched in sweat or in distress. The infant was on scene for the duration of the incident. There was also medics on the scene during the incident. The complainant verified that the child did not receive medical attention from the medics, nor did the complainant seek medical care after leaving the scene. While reviewing Officer 2's body-worn camera, he was observed making some derogatory comments to the girlfriend. After Officer 2 informed the girlfriend that she would be going to jail, she inquired about her child. Officer 2 stated to her, "You should be a better mother." After placing her inside his patrol vehicle and closing the door, he said, "Be a better mother." The comments appeared to be harsh, unwarranted, unjustified, and possibly biased. According to MMPD policy 4.20.040, conduct unbecoming of an employee of the department, a police officer is most conspicuous representative of government. And to the majority of people, the officer is a symbol of stability and authority upon whom they can rely. An officer's conduct is closely scrutinized, and when the officer's actions are found to be excessive, unwarranted, or unjustified, they are criticized far more severely than and comparable conduct of persons in other walks of life. So the recommendations from OPA was exoneration for both of the charges. The NCRB's recommended action is that, number one, the NCRB recommends that OPA further review this complaint for derogatory comments made by Officer 2. Number two, it is further recommended that OPA send all documents reviewed by OPA as stated in the MOU agreement. Body-worn camera for Officer 3 was not included in OPA's investigation report. However, the case summary reflected relevant timestamps that included Officer 3. OPA was made aware of the missing body-worn camera footage. And the executive director demands the board accept this report and send it to the chief of police and the mayor's office. And that concludes the case.
Board members, any comments? Recommendation?
I had a couple of questions. So
Okay.
this couple's got, how old is the child?
13 months old.
A 13-month-old child in a car, they're speeding, they've got drugs in their car, right?
Yes.
Right.
Let me see
So
how
the-
fast they were going, but
So the-
yes.
So they're speeding, so the officer pulls them over, and there's some resistance to the stop and the arrest. Is that,
That's correct.
so, is there anything in the file that says they notified Child Protective Services?
So there was discussion about that, and the officers they contemplated on whether or not to do that, and then they came to an agreement that since they already had, family members coming, that they would just transfer the child to the family members.
Well, look, as I listen to this, Director Fisher, I'm sorry, it's just my, I get a sense of what the officer must have been feeling at the moment. For him to see this kind of negligence, it seemed to be my opinion on it, from what I've heard. And that kind of emotional statement from the officer is a human thing. Whether he's got he knows what he's allowed to say and what he's not allowed to say. And when you hear something like this from an officer, I think we need to be a little more understanding. I mean, I got it. He has to be professional. He has to say, has to stay that way. But at moments like this, to see a child endangered like this, if it had been me, I probably would have said a lot more. And that's one of the reasons I stayed in a lot of trouble when I was on the police department, because I stated what I felt a lot, and I shouldn't have, I guess. But I think this is a human thing for an officer to do. I think we need to be careful about making those kind of judgments of what they're doing. I'm really more concerned about a notification for Child Protective Service than anything else. I mean, if this is happening, then what else is happening? What's the home life of this child like, and should Child Protective be notified, just so they'll be on the radar screen for potential other abuses, if there are any abuses. So, sorry, I had to force my opinion on that, so thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go, Wesley.
Remember when, in response to your question, so, thank you. The grounds for removal of a child from the custody of a parent for dependency and neglect specifically include drug exposure, and the facts as stated in this incident report would satisfy that as a ground for dependency and neglect. Law enforcement officers are among those who are mandatory reporters for child abuse and neglect. Now, I don't know off the top of my head whether this type of drug exposure rises to the level of child abuse and neglect that triggers the mandatory reporting duty, but had the department been notified and came to the same conclusion about these facts, it would have, under department policy, resulted in either extracting an agreement from the parents for a temporary safety placement with a relative, or the emergency removal proceedings initiated against the parents in juvenile court. So that's the full picture there.
And I think in fairness, and I didn't work this case, but I was told that the officer had encountered some other issue with the child before this case. Hold on one second. Or had seen something that involved a child? Okay, well, anyway, and so the emotions could have been running high. Yeah, I don't know, but, so there could have been some emotional response to this, so.
Board Member Hester?
Thank you. I do just want to have a little bit of dialogue and push back on that a little bit. I can appreciate the circumstance that the officers were in. And as we're reading the report, I'm thinking, okay, this seems reasonable. It escalated once there was someone fleeing and kicking, and then so that escalated to restraints. So I'm like, okay, this seems reasonable. But at what point do we, at what point should these officers be voicing moral judgment and potential bias remarks at people? And I understand that, again, it might be a heightened moment, but where do we draw the line there? So I'm okay with the recommendation of sending that back and asking for, them to look at those remarks specifically. I did have a question because there was a disciplinary record sent along with this. I see a written reprimand and suspended 1-day vacation. And I only have one document that says there was I think this is the same case. And do we have any more information about this written reprimand and the suspension of this officer after this event? I didn't know if it was.
Was it this event? Hold on one second.
Is this 069? I have a disciplinary record, written reprimand on October 11th, 2024, and a suspension on November 20th, 2024.
That's just basically his history background.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Hold on one second.
I'm just curious, is this also from,
It-
for remarks or something, or how they may be engaging with?
Let me look at the file. Let me look at the.
And I'm not trying to disagree with you, Member Nguyen, I'm just, I think there should be an objective, and
Well, sometimes they send a copy of his background, it's a disciplinary record along with it, to let you know what kind of person he's being or what kind of trouble he's being. And sometimes it can be a similar thing, for like an assault or disorderly conduct thing. He has a habit of being disrespectful to other people.
And that's exactly why I wanted to know, Chair. I wanted to know if these incidents in the disciplinary record were discourtesy to individuals or happened. Okay.
So, yes, there was a discourtesy, but it wasn't for this offense. Okay, let's see what it says here. It was for something else. Where is it? This is personal behavior. Yeah, this happened, this one looks like it happened on 2/8 of 2024.
And that was a discourtesy against another complainant, another civilian? I'm just trying to understand
Okay,
the context
yeah, let me
here.
look at it and I'll tell you. Yeah, this was about some kind of burglary in progress. Let me see, hold on. It was, it had nothing to do with this case. It was about another case where the officer, did not use profanity or anything, but was, going back and forth with a potential, person, a complainant.
And my thought on that is, I hear you about you're human, you're interacting, and like these officers are human and they're interacting in these scenarios, but if this particular officer is showing a propensity to engage with people in an inflamed and argumentative or biased way, I mean, that might be something that would be worth investigating.
Boardman Nguyen?
So let me be clear. So I'm not condoning his spontaneous judgment of this young woman who he didn't know. That he shouldn't have said what he said, if he said it. My bigger concern is that the exposure to all this of the child, and according to the statute, it triggers Child Protective Service notification. So that's, of all of this, that's my bigger concern. The officer, his emotions got the best of him if he said what the victim said that he said, or the complainant said that he said. He shouldn't have said it. But I understand that emotion, but he shouldn't have said it. But the bigger part is the welfare and safety of this child, to me, in all of this. So, if anything, if the file goes back, I'd like an answer of what triggers child endangerment notification if this doesn't. And they may not have seen it as that significant, but turning over a child to a family member is not like turning over a car to a family member in a drunk driving arrest. The child's a human, and were the people who the child was turned over to, do they know these people? So that was my concern.
Turned over to was the family members that showed up there.
Right. And they may be wonderful people, but with a circumstance like this and the recklessness of this family with this child, should have warranted a child protective service notification. If I keep hating to say if it were my case, but I've worked these kind of cases, so that would have been the normal thing that I would have ordered the officers to do. Thank you.
Within the video structure, there was discussion about that.
Board Member Brown?
I'm in agreement with Member Wynn. The fact that you've got scales in the car as a prosecutor indicates to me more than is just casual possession. You don't need scales for a personal use or something. And it's probably too late at this point to refer this to make, but I would like to have seen a recommendation that this be referred to child situation. Whether we can do that, so much time's passed now, it may be not practical, but I just, I suppose, like to see some part of the recommendation that under the facts, might have been better served with a referral to Child Protective Service, but, so I don't know whether I want to make that as a motion, but that's my real concern, that the officers didn't,
Okay,
refer
everybody,
this to, Child Service.
everybody has made the comment on this, and let's get a motion on this.
I'll make a motion then that the report be approved with the added comment that under the circumstances, a referral to Child Protective Services might have been warranted.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All opposed? No. The motion passes. So the motion passes. Let's go.
Did everybody vote?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
all in favor except one. All right, this is our last report.
I'll be presenting CC 2024-080, allegations of misconduct by NCRB against Detective Samuel Stolzar. Deficient or inefficient performance of duties, number one. Number two is conduct unbecoming of an employee of the department. And number three, courtesy. On September the 18th of 2024, Mr. Marcus Hatcher, hereinafter referred to as complainant, submitted a complaint by email to the Nashville Community Review Board regarding an incident that occurred on August 22nd of 2024 at approximately 7 a.m. During a staff meeting. This was during a staff meeting at his workplace. The complainant reported that during the meeting, he was asked to switch shifts but declined, which upset a coworker. The coworker allegedly confronted him with a clenched fist and after an exchange of words, responded affirmatively when complainant asked if he was going to be threatened with a fight. When complainant attempted to leave the meeting room to contact law enforcement, the coworker physically blocked his exit before eventually allowing him to leave. Feeling unsafe, the complainant contacted MMPD dispatchers to request police assistance, but after waiting several hours without an officer's response, the complainant left work and went home. On August 25th of 2024, the complainant went to the South Precinct to report the incident in person. He spoke with Officer Tamika Southern, who advised him that there appeared to be probable cause to proceed and assured him a detective would follow up. On August 28th of 2024, Detective Samuel Stolzar, hereinafter referred to as Detective, contacted the complainant stating he would investigate further by reaching out to HR and the coworker involved. According to the complainant, detective later informed him that he could not continue with the case because he was unable to successfully contact the coworker or obtain any supporting witness statements from HR. Complainant then asked about obtaining an order of protection, but detective told him the request would not be approved by a magistrate based on the facts presented. Complainant stated that no alternative measures or resources were offered to ensure his safety. Complainant expressed dissatisfaction with the handling of his case, stating he felt his concerns were not taken seriously and detective failed to fulfill the investigative responsibilities and did not provide adequate support or guidance and actively discouraged the complainant from seeking protective measures that could have secured his safety. And so, of course, the case was investigated by OPA, and the assigned detective was Detective Manquero, who conducted the investigation and did interview, eventually was able to interview the coworker that was accused, as well as made contact with the HR person at the facility that they worked at. Upon that investigation, witnesses basically stated that this did not happen, that the individual had not blocked the way. There was no, they saw no instances of, baiting him to go outside. And the investigation basically concluded with the interview with the HR person and the coworker. The detective also reached out to the public defender's or office and spoke with someone there and was advised that there was not enough probable cause to move forward with this. And therefore, OPA's conclusions are that, then the detective, Manquero, concluded that in personal behavior, adherence to policy and rules of the Metropolitan government, to wit, MMPD manual, follow-up investigations, developing information to aid in resolving the case. And this was, not sustained is what I'm trying to say, not sustained. And so the NCRB conclusion is the assistant director reviewed the evidence in the case and concludes that the detective did not violate any MMPD policies, and the OPA's investigation is complete and the findings are satisfactory. And these recommendations were, I did confer with the executive director in reference to the recommendations and the report. We agreed that the report should be sent to the board, to the chief of police, and the mayor. That concludes
Well, all
the
right,
report.
you've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passes. That concludes all our reports, and I believe we might have something for new business. Oh, you did answer that? Okay, then, we were just going to make sure that we didn't.
Yeah, it was about the MOU agreement, the MOU agreement and determining whether or not, I'm not really sure who's on the MOU committee. I know the last time we discussed it, we also talked about waiting for, I don't know whether we're gonna have same board members or new board members for other committees. But for those who have already signed up for the MOU committee, I'd like to meet with you the first part of October, if that works for you all.
That sounds fine for me.
Okay, so just to cover it, and either Wesley or Frank will be there with us to talk about, and I'll go through it and determine whether, so that you know what issues that we're having with it ahead of time, if there's any, but there is.
All right, you've heard, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye. Meeting has been adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.